If you haven't gone through a divorce or a long breakup that felt like a divorce, you might know this specific kind of whiplash. You look at your ex a few weeks or months later and think, who even is this person? And it can feel shocking in a way that's hard to explain to people who haven't lived it. Because it's not just that they're acting different, it's that they feel like they become completely different character in the story. And you're the only one that remembers the old version. So today we're going to talk about a pattern that happens a lot after divorce. And your ex often becomes something new, socially, emotionally, even publicly. And it's not always because they're evil or you're crazy. A lot of it is psychology, identity, social pressures, and coping. And even if you understand it, it can still hurt. We're going to cover what your ex often becomes after the divorce, why this happens, why it feels so shocking, and how to respond in a way that protects your peace and your future. And if you're watching this while you're still raw, let me just say this. Feeling shocked doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're seeing a real shift, and your brain is trying to update its map of reality. All right, let's get into the most common versions an ex becomes. After divorce, it's common for an ex to slide into one of these post-divorce identities. Not permanently, not always, and sometimes they shift between them. But these are patterns people tend to recognize. Shift number one is the stranger. That's the one that hits first. That becomes cold, formal, and distant. You talk and it feels like HR in the room. Short replies, polite tone, no warmth. And the shock comes from the contrast. This is someone who knew your routines, who your fears, your favorite foods, your weird little habits. Now they act like a coworker from another department. Why this happens is because distance can be a coping strategy. If they felt guilt, grief, regret, or anger, being formal keeps them from feeling too much. Shift number two is the victim. This is when your ex starts presenting the divorce as something that happened to them. They are the wounded hero, they are the survived. They escaped and they finally found freedom. Even if reality was complicated, this can feel shocking because you remember the whole context. What you dealt with, what you tried, what you carried. And now the story looks edited. Why this happens? Being the victim reduces shame and simplifies the narrative. If they can frame it as I was wronged, they don't have to examine their role. Shift number three, the glow up icon. Suddenly, they're in the gym, changing their style, posting new photos, traveling, looking like they're starting their own comeback movie. You might be at home feeling emotionally exhausted, barely functioning, thinking, how are they thriving like this? Why this happens is sometimes it's genuine growth, but often it's image management and distraction. When life falls apart, some people cope by controlling the external. It doesn't mean they're healed. It means they're performing stability. Shift number four, the enemy. This is the ex who becomes aggressive, petty, or strangely strategic. They argue about tiny things, rewrite old events, or treat every interaction like a courtroom. This one is shocking because it can feel like, I don't know, you had this side. Why this happens is because conflicts can become a way to avoid grief. Anger is energizing. Grief is heavy. And if they feel threatened, they may try to regain control through pushing and winning. Shift number five, the new person overnight. This is the classic. There's suddenly a new hobbies. They're into new values, new friend groups, new lifestyle, new everything. It can feel like, so was our whole life together just a phase? Why this happens is because after divorce, people often go through an identity reset. They're trying a new version of themselves. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's reactionary. Either way, it can feel like a person you knew has vanished. Now here's the part that explains why this hits so hard. One of the most intense parts of divorce is this. You don't just lose a relationship. You lose a shared reality. You had a story that went, this is who we are, this is what happened, this is what we meant to each other. After divorce, that story splits. Your ex has to build a new identity that makes sense to them, to their families, to their friends, and their future dating life. So what do people do? They simplify. They create a clean narrative like, we grew apart. I was unhappy for years. It just wasn't right. I finally chose myself. Sometimes those statements can be partly true, but they can also be used to erase the nuance. And if you're the one who still remembers the details, your effort, your pain, your side, watching them rewrite the story can feel like you're being erased. That's one reason it feels so shocking. It's not just a new version of them. It's a new version of you inside their story. And when other people start recreating that story, it feels like reality is being voted on, which brings us to the social circle effect. After the divorce, social circles often rearrange like magnets, snapping into new positions. Some people will choose sides, avoid you because it's awkward, be supportive privately but silent publicly, suddenly be closer to your ex. And this can feel like betrayal, especially if you thought certain relationships were stable. Here's what's happening though. People often pick story that's easiest for them to live with. Sometimes they stick with whoever they knew first. Sometimes they stick with whoever talks to them more. Sometimes they stick with whoever seems okay. And if your ex is doing the glow up icon thing, posting, smiling, appearing confident, people may assume they're fine and align with them. This is painful, but it's also very human. Most people are conflict avoidant. They drift towards path of least tension. So if you're feeling shocked by how people are acting, you're not imagining it. Divorce often reveals which relationships were truly rooted and which ones were situational. Now there's another lens that adds gasoline to the shock: dating. If your ex starts dating quickly, or like they are, it can mess with your head because it creates a nasty set of thoughts. Did I mean nothing? Were they already planning this? Are they happier without me? Was I the problem? First, let's separate two things: what it looks like versus what it is. After the divorce, some people date fast because they can't stand being alone. They need validation. They want to prove that they're wanted. They're trying to outrun grief. They're trying to rebuild identity through attention. And yes, some people generally move on quicker. But quick movement is not proof of deep healing. It's just proof of movement. If you're comparing your internal pain to the external highlight reel, you're always going to lose that comparison because you're comparing your behind the scenes to their trailer. So if your ex looks like a brand new person because of dating, remember, new attention can change someone's behavior quickly. It doesn't automatically change their character. Now let's talk about the biggest multiplier if kids are involved: co-parenting. If you share kids, the shock can be double because you might see your ex act one way with the children, another way with you, and that can scramble your brain. How can you be warm and fun with them but cold and harsh with me? Two things can be true at once. They can love the kids and still be emotionally unsafe with you. Also, parenting after divorce becomes partly a performance. Not always in a fake way, but in a people are watching way. Teachers, relatives, new partners, other parents. Some exes become the perfect parent publicly. And if you remember the uneven reality from marriage, that can feel maddening. If you're co-parenting, one of the most important mindset shifts is stop expecting emotional consistency from them. Start focusing on operational consistency, meaning that schedules, logistics, clear boundaries, and predictable communication. You can't control their personality, but you can control the structure, which leads us to the practical part: how to respond without losing your mind. Here's the mistake people make when their ex becomes a shocking new person. They keep trying to talk to the old version. They keep thinking, if I explain it right, if I remind them who we are, if I prove my point, and that usually leads to more pain. Because the post-divorce version of your ex may be built specifically not to engage with your reality. So instead of chasing closure through conversation, focus on boundaries through structure. Here's a few calm scripts you can use. Script number 1, ending the argument. I'm not going to argue about this. If you want to discuss logistics, I'm open to that. Script number 2, not taking the bait. I hear you. I'm not going to respond to personal attacks. Script number 3, recentering the topic. Let's keep this about the schedule and the kids. Script number 4, time delay. I'll respond after I had time to think. I don't want to reply emotionally. The last one is powerful because divorce makes you reactive, and the goal is to become unreactive. Not cold, just steady. And here's the truth that sounds simple but changes everything. Your ex's behavior is information. It's not a verdict on your worth. Now let's talk about healing without spiraling. A lot of people get stuck because they believe this myth. I heal once I understand why they changed. But the truth is, you might never get a clean explanation. Sometimes the explanation is messy, coping, ego, fear, shame, loneliness, influence from others, avoidance, growth, denial, or a mix of it all. And if you build on peace and understanding them perfectly, you're chaining your healing to their mind. Instead, aim for a different kind of closure. Closure is not that they finally admit it. Closure is, I accept that I may never get the answer and I choose to move forward anyways. One way to get unstuck is to name the real loss. You're not just grieving the person. You're grieving the future you imagine, the family picture, the shared home, the we. When you name that, the shock makes more sense because your brain isn't just reacting to who they are now. It's reacting to the collapse of what you thought your life would be. Okay, so what does moving forward actually look like? Here's the reframe that helps the most. Your ex becoming someone new doesn't mean your entire relationship was fake. It means the relationship had ended and both of you are now adapting. Sometimes well, sometimes badly. But if the adaptation looks like ugly, performative, or cold, that's painful information. But it's also clarity. It tells you that this is who they are choosing to be now. So your mission isn't to decode them. Your mission is to protect your peace, rebuild your identity, and create a life that feels steady again. And that looks like routines that stabilize your nervous system, friends who don't make you feel crazy, and boundaries that reduce the drama. Focus on your future instead of their image. And remember, shock fades when you stop expecting the past to come back. One day you'll realize, I don't know them like I used to, and that's okay, because you'll know yourself better than ever. Check the pinned comment below for helpful resources on this topic and click the like button, and I'll see you next time.